Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Courage, Wisdom, Power, where we treat games like the marshmallow snowball fight in the chapel that the youth pastor had to hire a dry cleaner beforehand for. Somehow, there's still some mallow in the carpet after all that, and that was weeks ago. We're a Christian gaming podcast where our mission statement is to have the courage to stand up for the faith, the wisdom to speak God's word, and the power to live for the Lord in everything we do, and just by listening, you are furthering the goal we set out to reach. Surprise! It's Season 3. Semester-long seasons are where I'm planning to take this from now on, with this one being themed around church history. I'm calling it, How Did We Get Here? And starting this season with a big ol' episode-long review of one of the best narrative games I've played in a very long time, Pentiment. Let's jump right in. Now, if you don't know what Pentiment is, you're probably wondering why on the first episode of a season on church history, I'm talking about some game from 2022 that was popular for like a week. This game in particular takes place during one of the greatest turning points in history of the church, the Protestant Reformation. Specifically, it takes place across 3 different points in time, 1518, 1525, and 1545. I'll start the episode with the spoiler-free review because I really want you all to play this game. Then I'll have the spoiler review broken into the 3 acts of the game. The faith stuff will be sprinkled throughout, so nobody can skip my sermons this time. Ha ha ha! Anyways, on to the review. Pentiment is a game about a town and the people inside it. The phrase, "the setting is like another character," is thrown around a lot in all media, but in this case, it is very much true. The Bavarian town of Tassing is just as deeply complex as any of the people shown throughout this generation-spanning story. You play as an artist passing through named Andreas Mahler. This is where your choice comes in. Instead of it having a class-based system affecting the gameplay, the game bases your actions around the user-made choice of where you studied abroad, what you studied, your character's hobbies and personality, and many more subtle details that may change a person's mindset. For example, my version of Andreas studied abroad in Germany, where he learned about theology, which led to a lot of very interesting conversations, botany, and how to properly debate. I also made him a bookworm, which comes in handy a lot more than expected. What you're visiting Tassing for specifically is you're learning from professionals in a church art house about art, specifically religiously based art for the Catholic Church. The more things about the church are said in this game, the more you realize why separation of church and state was such a major push for the early US government. You quickly learn Tassing is held with a firm grip by the Catholic Church, and that grip becomes stronger as the story goes. The inciting incident is when a baron visits the town to see an art commission he put in early. He is murdered the day after, making a scene during dinner with the priests. It is decided that you, of all people, for some reason, will solve the mystery. So unfolds one of the most historically accurate and well-written stories I've ever seen in gaming. The dialogue, first of all, is top tier. Every interaction is unforgettable and so smoothly written, with lots of room for you to put yourself into Andreas as a character. The characters themselves are incredible too. No character is too small in this story, with everyone in town and in the Abbey having something deeper going on if you just talk to them. There's side mysteries on top of side mysteries, and all of them are interesting in their own ways. Some character shoutouts personally would be Big Jorg, who starts as the kindly giant but is shown to be so much more than the sum of his parts. Otto, the wisecracking farmer who sees a large amount of character development across the entire story. Sister Gertrude, one of the few redeemable characters to come from the Abbey. And Sister Amelie, who embodies so much of the deeper messaging shown throughout the story. When it comes to hateable characters, this game is masterful at writing people you want to punch in the face so badly. Father Gernot, Leonard, Klaus, just hearing their names fuels me with unimaginable rage. As I said earlier, this game's historical context is so incredibly well done. It takes place around 3 major points of the Reformation, with the first act being nearly a year after the posting of the Theses. Act 2 being not too long after the big split that caused the start of the Anabaptist movement, and Act 3 just being at a point where everyone's kind of readjusted to the whole thing at this point. This is a hotly discussed topic within the game and with its characters. It's even used later on as a reason for multiple murders and incidents throughout town. Even outside of the Reformation, the writers definitely made sure to keep everything from the technology to the conversations to the way people live as historically accurate as possible. They didn't just do a medieval setting, they did an accurate medieval setting. A whole lot of people die of plague and what we'd call small injuries nowadays. They did deep studying for this game to make it as true to life as possible. Now, how the game portrays religious stuff, just like in Obsidian, this is developed by Obsidian, by the way, just like in their previous mega hit Fallout New Vegas, is with the utmost respect while also keeping it very real, showing the flaws of Catholicism and even the Reformation itself in a serious way. The ending reveal is such a heavy commentary on Catholicism's push for tradition over the word itself that even that one scene could be dissected so deeply to find so much. Outside of spoilers, though, there are many side conversations and entire characters that represent the faults of dedicating ourselves to what we want and what we think God would want over what the Word says we should actually be doing with our lives. There's an interaction in Act 2 with Father Gernot where he says his tightened grip on the people is purely to protect them from their own deceitfulness and sinful desires. When this tightened grip led to some of the most word-twisting laws ever made that have to take multiple backflips over the Old Testament and New Testament just to make sense. This line also leads to another key point made throughout the game. We are not the rulers of the world. I think the mindset of Gernot throughout this game and characters similar to him is the power and pride going to his head with the only thing he can do to keep it liable is twist the laws of the Lord in his favor to make it make sense. I don't think I need to say that that is not what the word calls us to do in any way, shape, or form. We should not in any way think we are above the word or think we are allowed to change it for our own gain and comfortability. The Lord makes the law, not us. He has a clear message with his law. We can do as many backflips over it as we want, but in the end, that just leads to sin and ungodliness. The overall message that can be taken from this is that human understanding is flawed. None of us have everything correct. I always like to talk about how the reason we have denominations and sub-theologies and this and that is... I lost my place. Is because we all have at least 5 things wrong with our theology and we just don't know. Because most theological concepts we debate are just that. Concepts and theories. Calvinism versus Arminianism. Covenant versus dispensation. It's all concepts and theories and different understandings of the same word that in the end are probably wrong. We can try and explain things for ourselves all we want, but in the end, the Lord understands things we will never be able to wrap our heads around, no matter how much we overthink it. We put so much more energy towards theology over the Lord that theology itself is nearly an idol. Jesus himself and his incredible sacrifice is not mentioned in common tongue in our days except for begrudgingly. Ask some Theo bro to explain the importance of Jesus' birth and resurrection, and you'll either get a cookie cutter answer he learned in junior church way back when he was 5, or how it's important to his specific theology, which then turns into a one-sided debate on Calvinism as you try to shimmy away awkwardly. We need to remember not just when reminded, but constantly how important Jesus' sacrifice is. All right, unscripted part. I'm going to try my hardest to keep this spoiler-free, because I tried to make the spoiler-free review of the game as scripted as possible, because I don't want to spoil anything, but like, I really feel like a main thing that this game wants to talk about is how important like how big of a grasp tradition over faith had on the world at this time, and tradition over truth specifically. And that's very clear through even the name of the game, which the name of the game comes from the word pentimento, which stands for painting over something when you're making a painting, like covering up what was there, which represents a lot of things throughout this game. And so I feel like that's overall just a commentary on how we will cover up so much and lie about so much in our heads, or change things, or do these backflips and overthinkings of words in the Bible to so it will agree with what we want over what God wants. And that is not okay. That is not okay. We should not do these backflips and overthinkings of the word for our own gain, for our own comfortability. And that's what this game is mostly talking about, is just people will constantly, throughout history, have been shown to twist the word for their own good. Twist the word for their own good. And that's especially shown if you choose the theology track, because Andreas will quote theology back at the priests and completely negate everything they are saying with these perfectly theological sayings, and it will enrage them. And it's so interesting every time it happens, because these are people who dedicated their lives to the word, and yet they were being knocked down by said word. The word is important. We cannot put theology over the word. Theology has become an idol in itself, and we need to go back to what the word directly says. Not all this trying to figure out what God means, like all these side little things that really don't affect anything whatsoever except for our own understanding, which we should not lean on our own understanding. We should lean on the Lord's understanding, and the Lord's understanding is found in the word. We should lean on what the word says, not what our own minds say, because our own minds can fail us. That is the main thing I pulled from this. We should not lean on our own understanding. We should lean on the understanding of the Lord. Now, before I get to the spoiler review, let's do songs from the Nightingale. Today's song is Deliverance by Strahan, or Strawn. I don't really know how to say it. It felt like I should kick off the season with a song that feels very hymn-like, while also very humble and collected, very personal while also very inviting, just as a church should be. I'll be back. Please enjoy this song.
Your love is a flood, and I swim deep when the tide is up. Oh, would you flood me too? So water in my blood has made me taste sweet to the world. Oh, and you taste sweet too. This is my deliverance, hands held high as you deliver it. Oh, you have made me a child of God, my feet on the ground, my heart in heaven. I am great, made without the living. Oh, you have made me a child of God. Well, I lay in the sand with sweet forgiveness in my hand. Oh, as a gift from you. Your water floods my brain, this gray cranium won't be the same. Oh, where I've been won't do. This is my deliverance, hands held high as you deliver it. Oh, you have made me a child of God, my feet on the ground, my heart in heaven. I am great, made without the living. Oh, you have made me a child of God. Whoa, you have made me a child. This is my deliverance, hands held high, as you deliver it. Oh, you have made me a child of God, my feet on the ground, my heart in heaven. I am bread made without the living. Oh, you have made me a child of God.
As I said multiple times earlier, this is going to be a lot less scripted than the no spoiler review, because you kind of have to script a no spoiler review to keep it clear of said spoilers. With this, I can say whatever I want, so I have it like formatted, so I have like the key points and stuff. But other than that, it's my own words just coming out of my brain at this moment, because spoilers all here, all throwing them all out there. So, but before I say anything, before you listen to this review, go play the game. Go play it now. Go play Pentiment. It's not super long. It's only like 10 hours, I want to say. Maybe 18 if you really grind away and find like all the little secrets. But like, it's fantastic. Go play it now and then come back. Go play the game. I don't care if it's not on sale. Go buy it. And then come back and listen to this. Okay. I'm going to give you some time to pause this and switch over to like Spotify or something. Switch over to like your favorite playlist or something. And go buy the game and go play it for like a week and then come back here. Okay, we're good? Okay, so we're going to split this into each act because each act has a different thing to say. So let's start off with Act 1. Alright, so Act 1. So I have this split into specific elements and characters, my personal choices, and then the meanings I pulled, which I listed out. So Act 1, specific elements and characters. So Act 1 deals with a lot of inner workings of the church because you are working within it throughout it, and like how it looks from both sides. And so like nobody really seems like a bad guy at this point. There's just like annoying characters. And there's a lot of characters that are even like, even if they don't die by the end, they're still very specific to this act because they don't really interact with you in the other acts, which I feel like that's kind of a flaw overall, because like it makes it so the character deaths aren't as impactful, because it's like even if you did get these characters to survive, like even if these characters did survive, they're still not interacting that much, which it's just weird. It doesn't feel as personal. And some of the characters that are like Act 1 specific, there's this farmer, this farmer nearby who's just got a mouth. He's just got a mouth. And then there's Lucky the blacksmith, which he ended up being the suspect. Well, I ended up accidentally picking him because I gave all the evidence, but then I was like, but I think it's this guy, which the guy I said I thought it wasn't Lucky. They just went with Lucky anyways, which was really annoying because I liked Lucky. He was a good guy. And there's also like this little priest who is like the nicest little guy. He's a silly little guy. He's great. Yeah, the characters throughout Act 1, they very much are connecting you to the story. they very much like get you pulled in. They're the characters that pull you in. And they are so like everyone's so like chill in Act 1. It's like, oh, the serious stuff hasn't happened yet. It's still like pretty silly, a little silly, goofy. Everyone's still friends and stuff. And their debates are like, oh, I don't like that person. That person's kind of annoying. And it's like, oh, that's so fun. And then there's like the one point where you actually like spin thread with the farmer ladies to get in on like the sweet goss and info. That was fun. I really liked doing that. Like spinning thread to get that good old goss. Ooh. That was good. That was good. That was iconic. That was an iconic moment right there. But my personal choices that I made in this game, in Act 1, were... So I already said the character choices I chose. And yeah, I ended up getting Lucky killed, which was not my choice. I gave them all the information on all 3 suspects, and they just chose Lucky, which... I mean, fair enough, because he did have the most evidence towards him. It's just this leads to my first main meaning that I picked up from it, which is evidence over opinion. I was putting my own opinion over the evidence at hand, which is not how that works, and that's also how we should view the Bible. Don't put your opinion over the truth. Don't put your opinion over true evidence. That is something that many, many debaters like to do. Put their own opinions and own truths with heavy quotes over the actual proof. And that's not what we should do. We should do what the Lord tells us to do originally. And then the other one is how to properly evangelize. Now this meaning I pulled from a specific instance where one of the suspects is this old widow who really hates the church. And she hates it so much that like you go to help her like with chores and stuff and clean up, and then near the end she's like, okay, now you see that cross on the wall? Take it down. Take it down. Church bad. The church is bad. I don't want to see that in my house. And you're just sitting here like, that's not okay. Then like so with the theology stuff, like, for once the theology option wasn't actually very good, because it was very like, oh, you should keep that cross up because otherwise you'll make the church angry. And then there was also like some other thing that had to do with the church's rule. And like, that was not right. That was not right. That was not the right answer. The right answer was like, I don't remember what I chose, but it was about proper evangelism, not forcing your faith on it, but being like, hey, just so you know, this isn't the church's. This is not the church's symbol. This is the symbol of the sacrifice Jesus made for us. And then like you tell her the truth and she's like, oh, yeah, I should probably keep that up. It's okay. You can keep it there. And that was an incredible moment. That was absolutely incredible. And it gets me going whenever I think about it. Anyways, that was my Act 1. I was very sad at the ending when they revealed, like at the time jump, like, oh, the nice little priest died. Oh no, he's dead. Like that hurt because he was like the best. But anyways, on to Act 2, which is probably like, when it comes to my favorite act, it goes like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. So, but Act 2 is still a pretty great act, and I learned a lot from it. There's a lot of messages that I pulled from Act 2. So, I'll be right back. Alright, so Act 2, Act 2 specific elements and characters. So, specific elements and characters, I thought Andreas's Act 2 look was stupid. I think he looked dumb. That's just my own opinion, but I think he looked dumb. I did like how they were very heavy on the fact that, like, after the first round of murder, the church got, like, really heavy on, like, all the stuff. And, like, that's really cool. That's really cool and interesting. Just little things like that. Like, the church is, like, stronger on things. That's scary. That's very scary. And it really shows, like, how malicious the Catholic Church could be at this time. Like, for instance, how Father Gernot becomes, like, very, very firm on the town, very firm grasp on the town. He starts putting in laws that are really insane, and those laws are really, really insane. And, like, I got to have the personal dinner with him, and that was very interesting because he tried to keep, like, a level-headedness to the whole conversation and, like, keep, like, a godliness to what he was saying, but, like, it was very clear he was acting in power. He was acting in power over faith, and pride over faith. And this all culminates to also my personal choices were I made it so he also studied abroad in France between the time, and who did I choose as the victim? I chose Brother Guy as the victim. And some of the Act 2 characters that I'm going to shout out. The little boy that you take it, like, your apprentice, he is fantastic. Loved him. Loved having the little apprentice character. I ended up not being able to get him to leave. I wasn't able to finish that conversation track, which was sad, because this is the spoiler section, but he ends up dying because of that, and that's very sad. But some of the other characters, what's his name? Was it Reinhardt? Reinhardt, I think. I want to say his name was Reinhardt. Reinhardt was the worst. Leonard, he was the worst. I thought he was terrible. He was like classist on, like, another level. He thought poor people were absolute scum of the earth and was not afraid to say it. And it was I hated talking about it. I mean, and the way he treated, like, the women of the town, holy crap. And he was saying he was on the church's side. Oh, yeah, he was a bad character. Bad. I hated him, but he was well written when it comes to hateable characters. He was very well written for a hateable character. I hated him so much. He was so, he grinded my gears. So I also have a separate thing on here for, like, the major event that is, like, the climax of the game, I want to say. Like, the major event that happened in this act, which was the revolt. The revolt, which was the town finally going, we don't like the church. Let's go and we don't like the church anymore. We don't want it to rule us anymore. So we're going to go and burn it down. That was intense. That was some of the most intense story I have seen in a game. That blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. I didn't know this game could pack so many surprises. And that specifically, they talk about how that was probably a big mistake in Act 3 and how the revolt is a big mistake. And that leads to one of the meanings I pulled from it. The first one, which was flipping tables is not the only answer. Violence is not the answer. Violence is not always the answer. We cannot always resort straight to violence when it comes to like, split in the church. It should not be straight to violence. That is not the correct way. Jesus flipped tables once, and everyone thinks, oh, that's how we're supposed to react to people spouting wrong and doing bad things in the church. We're supposed to flip tables. Like, no, there's That was one time. That was one time. All the other times, Jesus just talked to people. Jesus just talked to people, talked about their side, talked about his side, talked over the opinions of the other person's side, and it eventually led to those people following him. Think like Nicodemus. Like, yeah, Jesus talked. He talked. He understood. He leveled himself. And that led people to, oh, Jesus is the truth. He didn't force it on anyone. He just told them the truth, and they believed it because it was the truth. And that is what we should do. We should not resort straight to violence. Next is emotion over our faith. This also fits into this, the whole revolt. Putting our own, like, so Peter, the character who, like, leads the revolt, he very much puts his emotion over his faith, and that is why he burns the place down, because of his own emotion. That is why he does it. And that is oof. That's it. Like, as I watched it, I was like, oh, stop, calm down, take a few breaths, because holy crap, all you need is to just take a deep breath real quick and just go, this is wrong. And, like, everyone else in the revolt at the point when he finally burns things down, it's like, wait, I didn't sign up for this. Slow down, Peter. And, so emotion over our faith, that is not what we should do. We should not resort to anger. We should not let anger control us. Yes, be angry, but do not sin. Be angry, but do not sin. That is directly in there. Paul wrote that. Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. Come on. That just, I didn't like that. I really didn't like that. That got me. That hit me. Because, like, I'm a person who will let anger fuel me and let anger take over. And that is not the correct way. That is not what we should correctly be doing. But, yeah. Last thing is sacrifice. Our own personal sacrifice. I don't really know why I wrote this one down, because I didn't fully understand what I meant when I wrote it down. So, it's because of, like, Andreas's sacrifice that he makes at the end. Like, he runs into the library and sacrifices himself to save books, which was stupid. I was like, Andreas, like, I knew Andreas was gonna die, but, like, I was like, what? Wait, he dies from running into a library after books. Like, that's just not satisfying in any way. And that was dumb, honestly. That's all I gotta say. That was dumb. But anyways, yeah, flipping tables is not the answer, and we should not put our emotion over the Spirit. The Spirit should guide us. The Spirit should guide our actions, not our own feelings. Anyways, on to Act 3, which is the act that I've learned the most from, but also my least favorite act. It really didn't reach me. So, be right back. Alright, so Act 3, specific elements and characters. So, Act 3 is 20 years after Act 2. 20 years. That was an insane time. Oh, I dropped my ring. Yeah, you play as a character named Magdalene. So Magdalene, as a character, I started off with her as like a really, bitter person, but she started to warm up to people, and I had given her the book in Act 2 about Arthurian legend, so she always spouted about Arthurian legend and Greek myth and all that. And I also gave her the option to, like, oh, she's studying Reformation books. That never came into play. That literally never came into conversation, and it was so annoying. And then I also made her a mechanic, which was very helpful with, like, fixing stuff around town. I like that. I like doing that. Yeah, characters specific. All the young townsfolk I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed all the young townsfolk. Otz or Oates. Oates was great. I don't know why I was so hard on him, but he was great. He was probably my favorite character of the group. Apollo and just the twins. The twins were funny. Because when you choose the Reformation option for a book you're reading, it's like, yes, I'm reading so blah 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 by Martin Luther, and he just goes, that sounds boring and bad, and like that was so funny. That was just so funny. Like actually, like that was funny. That was actually funny. And yeah, other specific characters in this act, the recluse version of Andreas is probably my favorite version of him, because he's very, you can tell, like, even though he was a recluse, he very much rethought everything he's ever done. He was very he cared about others over himself a lot more. I could also, like, I really hate to say this, but I could relate to Andreas very well, because he is a very subtly prideful person. He's a very subtly prideful person. He thinks he's the best at everything, and he's so smart and so wise for his age. Oh, he's so special. And like, that is relatable, because that's how I am half the time. I am not smart, no matter how much I say it. It hurt how relatable it was. It hurt how relatable it was. And so I really like this version of Andreas because he was very matured. He was a lot smarter than the other versions. He was a lot more caring than the other versions. And the ending dispute with Father Thomas. So this scene, I am constantly thinking about what he had to say, because there were so many little things he said that were just so like, ooh, that's a deep commentary in that sentence that you really really got there. And those, it was for a Theo person, for a theology guy, like that was the perfect ending, because like it was like he was saying the murder, he led the murders because this and because that and because like he was like, oh, it's I wanted to keep the people safe, so we kept the traditions in, even though they would have been fine because it's the gospel. They wouldn't lose their faith if they were true believers. But he wanted to hide the truth because he didn't want them to lose their faith. If learning that's not true affects their faith, if learning that's not true really like twists their faith that much, then that means they probably weren't very faithful in the first place. That probably means they didn't have it in the first place. So it's such an interesting conversation from a theological standpoint. And like he even understands, like after the conversation, like, oh yeah, that was wrong. That was wrong of me to say. Like he even realizes, like, oh yeah, that was not correct. That was not godly in any way. I can say it was godly all I want, but that's only for my own personal gain. And like the character of Sister Amelie is very fleshed out in this ending, with how like she dedicated her entire life to following the Spirit's voice and following the Lord's voice, and learning that voice was not the Spirit's, it was someone else twisting it for her, and that someone else being Father Thomas, which, like, holy crap, like that has so much deeper messaging of like the idea of like people who have dedicated their whole lives to the faith only to learn that they were taught wrong, like cult like denominations, like that kind of thing, like where they're told don't read the Bible and don't study like the people, don't study the history because it's all lies, and then you go and study the history and it's like, oh shoot, that doesn't seem like a lie. That's very evidence heavy. And like it's like the cult denominations, and how like people will dedicate their whole lives to them and then realize, oh shoot, I was wrong the whole time and nobody told me otherwise because I wasn't allowed to check. Like, that is an interesting character to write, and I wanted to see more like in the epilogue of her than what we got, which what we got was just like, oh hey, thanks for saving me. Like, oh okay, that's like, oh okay, that's a small little thing. I wanted to know how you're doing theologically, and faithfully and stuff, but okay. Anyways, the overall messages that I pulled from this one is, I pulled 3 main ones. First, faith should not be blind. That is, I already explained all that. Faith should not be blind, because like the whole Father Thomas thing, like we should put background study into what we're doing. We should look at the context of what we're reading. We should not just, like, no matter who it is who's teaching us, we should not just take their word for it. The only person we should take at their word is the Lord. Always go back, look at the context, read what the Bible actually has to say. And most of the time it should be pretty accurate. Like, most of the time it should be correct. But sometimes, even like my dad slips up even sometimes, because like my mom has told us multiple times, there are times where we'll come home from church and my mom will be like, oh, that was a great sermon, hun, but there was this one thing, and then he's like, oh, okay, I'll fix that for next time. Thank you for pointing that out. And like, yeah, blind faith is not okay. We should go back and study what we're teaching. And then we will have a stronger faith overall. Next is truth over opinion. Again, this kind of, truth over opinion, evidence over opinion. That also wraps into that, putting our looking at the truth of the Bible over what we think the Bible says, what we want to believe the Bible says. Going to actually read it and read what we're reading in context can completely flip what something means. Like, even small stuff like, the truth will set you free. What it's talking about specifically is the truth of Jesus Christ. It's not talking about like truth in general. It's talking about specifically the gospel truth of Jesus Christ. Like, always look at context, look at the truth. Do not base it, like, it's impossible to make everything completely unbiased, but like, make sure to keep as little bias as you can while you study the Bible. That is what I gotta say. And then third point is like the most important. This is kind of like the wrap up thing. This and truth over opinion are like the 2 wrap up things that this whole game is about. Fellowship. The people are one of the most important parts of the church. The people in the church, the connections made, and the care shown across is the most important. Not the most important part of the church. That's the gospel of Jesus Christ. One of the most important parts of the church. Because if you go to a church where you know nobody and nobody is willing to talk to you, you are going to feel no connection to anything. But if you go to a church where everyone wants to discuss with you and spend time with you and get to know you and know how your day is and like check how you're doing and how you're doing spiritually, that is a good church. That is a good fellowship. That's what you want. You want a fellowship that cares. You want a fellowship that cares, and that is shown in this game. The townsfolk care about each other. They feel like one big, even at times dysfunctional, but one big family that all care about each other's problems and care about each other's needs. And that's what we should do. We should care about each other's needs and care about like giving each other spiritual knowledge and strengthening each other in the gospel. Like, that's something we should be doing. And so overall, the two main messages of this are fellowship, and more importantly, I feel truth over opinion is very much shown throughout this. Putting the truth of the gospel over our opinion is very important. Putting our opinion and our own wants and needs over what the gospel says can completely twist everything and lead to horrible, horrible instances, and just lead to us painting over something we don't like and creating a pentimento of our own. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. This was probably a very rambly episode of the show, yet I hope you enjoyed and tossed another game on your Steam wishlist. Next week, we'll start digging way more into the church history stuff, but in the meantime, go buy some merch, try to log on to the Discord, which is most likely still being very dumb. And remember to have the courage to stand up for the faith, the wisdom to speak God's word, the power to live for the Lord in everything we do, and just by listening to this episode, you are furthering the goal that we have set out to do. Thank you. Have